So joining me is somebody who lives in the middle of the Pacific Palisades, a region I would say brutally affected, hit by by an inferno which has caused a lot of damage, damage, unimaginable damage. And as we speak, the Palisades and the Eaton fires, both of which began on Tuesday, are the two biggest blazes currently engulfing Los Angeles. With me is Mr. Peter Dukes, who is a seasoned journalist who has also suffered tragedies. His brother's house, his ex-wife's house, where his daughter lives, were burnt in this catastrophe. He's here to speak to us. It is indeed a very difficult time. And I would like to begin by asking you, sir, could you take us through those last 24 or 72 hours? When did you exactly realize that this inferno could eventually lead to your doorstep?
Um, I'll try to be succinct. First and foremost, what I'd like you to know is that there was another fire that started a week earlier within a mile of where this fire started. And the reason that that's important is because the Los Angeles Fire Department reported that they ran out of water at a certain point during this inferno. And so I think it's important to understand that before we start talking about this fire, we know that there was a fire a week earlier that they put out. The reason that I think that that's important is because they would have had plenty of time to make sure that all the reservoirs were full. If you're using any kind of common sense. That said, on that day, I woke up in the morning. I do a podcast on Tuesdays. I usually work out on Tuesday morning what I'm going to do. There was an alert on my phone. Actually, backing up from that, the day before, there were two very ominous alerts that came over our cell phones. This is a phenomenon that's relatively new in Los Angeles. One of the problems that I've always had with these alerts that they send out is that it also alerts arsons. So they send out an alert to everybody in Los Angeles saying it's an extremely high risk moment. And then lo and behold, we have a fire. So in Los Angeles, we're pretty used to getting these messages all the time and not having them actually mean much. We get accidental messages on our emergency messages on our phones relatively frequently, and it has a tendency to kind of reduce your, response to it. So I woke up that morning and I was trying to decide what to do with my show, and I heard the Super Scoopers, which are these Canadian fire aircraft coming over the house, and I went out and I actually made a video that's on my Twitter feed. I made a video because didn't feel particularly threatened by the fire, and the alerts kept coming, and I went back to my apartment studio. I edited the video, I posted the video, and then I went outside and I thought, boy, this looks pretty serious. And we started to pack up to evacuate. Because I was in production mode and I was editing a video, I wasn't paying too much attention. And I walked outside and it looked ominous. I think that I was probably the last person in my neighborhood. I left at about 5:45. I've got video of that. And uh, and then we left. We put everything that we could think of in the car. Most people had the same mindset that I did, which is that they thought that they were going to come back because we've gone through this situation before. It wasn't really a problem. In the past, we would evacuate, we would come back, and everything would be there. Because I am media, I have a press pass and I have media plates on my vehicle. And the next morning, we got up, we stayed in a hotel, and the next morning at 12 hours later, I drove back. I was probably the first journalist. I was certainly the first still photographer in there. It was a very, very dangerous situation, and everything was gone. So 98% of my neighborhood, I would estimate, is gone. There were three or four houses that were left relatively untouched. There were a couple of vehicles, a Toyota, an old Toyota Land Cruiser,
Mhm. Mhm.
and a,
This
go
means
ahead.
So this means the entire Pacific Palisades is gone, right? You are saying 98% of your neighborhood was gone.
I'm saying,
I
yeah,
have a
from you can
Yeah,
find this on a map if you
yes.
Between Sunset Boulevard and the Bluffs.
I have seen images. I've seen
Yeah,
images the day before and when this tragedy struck, right? And when did you realize? I mean, you said you was the last person, right? You were the last person to leave
yeah.
Pacific Palisades. Would you be able to tell us
I was the last person to leave my neighborhood. Yes.
your neighborhood, right? I mean,
Yeah, my neighborhood is
there a
called
rough
the
estimate? Is there a rough estimate of how many people live in your neighborhood? And by what you are saying, you are telling us, suggesting that all of them left before you left your place, right? And when did they exactly leave? Any idea?
when did I leave?
When did they leave? People who live close to you.
They left between noon and 5:45 when I left.
So, sir, you just said that you people, just because it's an area where you know wildfires have come before. So this is something which is normal for you guys because you have seen it before, you have experienced it before. I mean, when did it strike you guys that this is something really serious? This is not normal. This hasn't happened before. I'm talking about, your neighborhood also. When did they realize that this is really serious, right?
Well, I think it's because the evacuation warnings were coming fast and furious. Like they used to, you'd get one and then you wouldn't hear another one for hours. At a certain point, they were coming like every 5 minutes.
And was there any chit chatter in the local community, in your neighborhood? Did you guys see this disaster coming? Like, were you expecting something of this kind, of this magnitude? Because this is unprecedented. I mean, the entire world is watching. This is unprecedented. So, my specific question is that was there any chatter? Was there any discussion in the local community, in your neighborhood? People with you hang around that something of this magnitude, right? Something of this scale can happen.
No, there wasn't. I mean,
There was
no, we have, again, to your point, we've been normalized to this. Malibu is just a little bit north. It's the next community north of the Pacific Palisades. Malibu has fires all the time. And Topanga Canyon has fires pretty regularly. The Pacific Palisades occasionally has a fire, but it's mostly a residential community. It's up against the Santa Monica Mountains. Uh, and the fire department historically has been really, really good. Like I said, the most expensive real estate in Los Angeles is in the Pacific Palisades. And usually the neighborhood next to mine is a much uh, uh, I would say a higher wealth neighborhood called the Huntington Palisades. The Huntington Palisades seemed to do better in than my neighborhood. My neighborhood, not that the average price of a house in my neighborhood is probably $6 or $7 million, and there's 300 or 400 houses in that neighborhood, and they are all gone. Sorry, my wife just walked through.
no problem, sir.
I'm in
Yeah,
a
no
tiny
problem.
place. Yeah.
No problem. I hope good times uh, come soon, sir. I hope this tragedy gets over as soon as possible. Uh, I mean, our prayers are with you and the people affected by the wildfires. Sir, moving forward, there are a lot of theories, right? Uh, Being reported. There are scientific theories of climate change, of this particular area witnessing a lot of rains, and then a lot of plants grew, There was quite a lot of vegetation, and then
That's all
a,
nonsense.
yeah, a dry spell came, and then the gutsy winds, the wind speed. According to you, I mean, you have lived in this area, you know the weather, you have seen it all. I mean, what do you think is the reason behind these raging fires, forest fires?
Well, I think that the change story and the lack of vegetation clearing are all very convenient political stories. I don't think that they're true. I think that what happened was that we have these winds called Santa Ana winds. It was very, very windy, and I think that people went up and started fires. And then when the fire department went to go deal with them, the way that they normally deal with them, the main tool that firefighters use to fight fires is water, and they ran out of water. Now, I don't under we had a fire 50 or 60 years ago called the Bel Air fire. Um, the fire
These are
department
being
had
called
this,
Kenneth fire, right? These
what,
fires are being called Kenneth fires, right? Kenneth fires. They've given it a name called Kenneth fires.
the Kenneth is, I think, the name of a street in Woodland Hills, and that's a different fire.
Okay, it has nothing to do with these fires,
All
right?
these fire, all these, there's four, I think there's four fires burning in Los Angeles right now. I think they're all set by arson. And I think that we're in a Roman Nero real estate clearing phase. That's what I think is behind all this. I think the
You
whoever the
see a conspiracy behind this? You see somebody behind this tragedy? You see a
yeah,
hand in it?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And what about the theories? Because I'm being told that your house is close to a water reservoir, and there was no water at all, right? There was no water at
Yeah,
all.
my brother. Well, I don't know that for sure. Because I was using Google Maps as a reference, and I'm unsure when the photograph was taken on Google Maps. But the my wife and brother's house. I'm sorry, my ex-wife and my brother's house um, are directly across from a reservoir where fire department helicopters fill up with water in order to fight fires. So they always felt relatively safe. On Wednesday morning, when I drove up to the Highlands using my media pass, okay, my my ex-wife and brother's condominiums still were intact. There were four fire engines sitting at the corner of Palisades Drive and Palisades Circle, so within 200 or 300 yards. And the firemen were all standing there not doing anything, and there was fire burning around the condominiums. The condominiums were not on fire, but the firemen weren't doing anything. And I was very angry at the fire department at that point. And as I drove down the hill, I saw water tankers driving up the hill. So I realized they didn't have any water. Now, if you take the water away from a fire department, how are they supposed to fight the fires? And if you know that there was a fire a week earlier in the exact same area, why wouldn't the reservoirs have been full? Why wouldn't the Department of Water and Power have taken care of that? Yeah, I think, yeah, if you want to say it's a conspiracy, it takes a lot of people to make sure that there's no water at the right time. And there was no water at the right time. So you tell me what to think.
No, we are all witnessing the political fallout of this, this entire tragedy. Trump is yet to be sworn in. He has already blamed Biden and the local administration. There's a war of words going on between President-elect Donald Trump and the governor, Gavin Newsom. I mean, he has questioned the local government, and there are reports that the specific budget of the fire department of the Los Angeles Fire Department was cut, and the money was diverted to some other department for some other project, and apparently that money was also not spent. So there's a lot of politics happening, and on the other hand, the governor of California has issued a statement, right? It's on his X handle saying that there is no dearth of water. They do have a lot of water. So, I mean,
That's
with
political
all these,
nonsense.
you call
I
it
mean,
political nonsense?
It's the fact that there's not enough water is political nonsense. California has water. Starting decades ago, the environmentalists decided that they wanted to create this false scenario where they had to protect a non-indigenous fish called the Delta smelt in the Sacramento River Delta. You can
Yes, I was about to come on this topic. That Donald Trump
Okay,
has accused
okay, and they turned the water off. Okay, the water is there, and to quote Donald Trump, I was a Donald Trump fan. I'm not a Donald Trump fan at this point, but to quote Donald Trump, I watched him in person do this. He said they can turn the water off, and he put his hands up like this, and he goes, they can turn the water back on. But you know what? In 4 years that Donald Trump was in office, I don't think the water got turned back on. Um, that said, there's a local political fight right now, which I think kind of parallels the Kamala Harris Donald Trump fight, which is the Karen Bass Rick Caruso fight. So in the village, the central area in the Pacific Palisades, a developer named Rick Caruso built this incredible shopping center, which is very Tony is the word. The Pacific Palisades historically it's been a very kind of like hometown. It's almost like a TV show cliche town. Rick Caruso knocked down the old village and he built this brand new shiny shopping center that made it through the fire. Apparently, Rick Caruso had his own resources to make sure that his buildings didn't burn down. But he came out firing on Wednesday at Karen Bass. Now he ran against Karen Bass for mayor. So you've got this political dynamic of the Karen Bass is Kamala Harris and Rick Caruso is Donald Trump. They both represent the same kind of political basis. But I see all of this stuff as a phony baloney dialectic because I think that this was a real estate clearing project. All of that real estate that has been wiped out right now, when they rebuild, it's going to be worth a lot more money. It's going to be worth a lot more money. And the people that can take advantage of that are going to. And that's what I think is going on.
Okay, so let me come to my last question. I mean, you live in that area. We have seen a list of Hollywood celebrities. I mean, their dream abodes were also, turned to ashes, right? And we have seen a lot of posts on social media. I mean, have you been able to speak to any of them? Because we see a long list of Hollywood celebrities, Oscar winners, losing their homes, losing their properties.
I don't know. Anthony Hopkins was a neighbor of mine. I never met him. I never talked to him, but his house was, I don't know, 200 yards or 300 yards from my house. His house is gone, I think. I'm pretty sure it's gone. So if you're looking for somebody to reach out to, you might want to talk to Anthony Hopkins.
Uh, I mean,
When I went back there, I was alone. Okay, I used my media pass to get in there, and there was nobody there except me and a few firemen, and there were not very many firemen that I in my neighborhood.
we also heard that even the firemen were rescued. The situation was so bad that they had to rescue the firemen also. Is it true?
I don't know, but with these raging wildfires, you can pull up a road and it can cut you off in front and it can cut you off in back. I can tell you that going in on Wednesday morning with my media credentials was, in retrospect, the most dangerous thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, the number of downed power lines, the air quality, it was it was a very unsafe thing that I did.
Uh, so thank you so much, I mean, for joining us, for sharing your experiences. I know these are difficult times. I know you don't have a permanent place. Uh, I mean, we can pray to God that normal times return soon. You can go to your place once again and the fires are doused as soon as possible. I mean, these are extremely difficult times for you, your family, and the loved ones.
Well, I guess in closing, what I would say is that the neighborhood that I lived in died. The town of Pacific Palisades will never be the same. Pacific Palisades is one of the few towns in America that still has a 4th of July parade every 4th of July. And the last vehicle that goes down the street on the 4th of July is usually a fire truck, with a big American flag and a Dalmatian on it, because that's the, cliche Norman Rockwell picture of America. And I can't imagine anybody who lives in the Pacific Palisades cheering on the fire department anymore. And I realize I don't begrudge firemen. I think that they do a terrific job, but uh, the Pacific Palisades will never be the same. It will never be the little Leave It to Beaver was a TV show in the 1960s in the United States, and the first time that my wife I brought my wife up to my place to show her where I lived, there were two kids riding bicycles down the street. And she said, "There's kids riding bikes down the street." And I said, "Yeah, this is a completely, TV show neighborhood, and it was a very, very special place. They used to sell a T-shirt at the Chamber of Commerce office, and it said, "If you're rich, you live in Beverly Hills. If you're famous, you live in Malibu, and if you're lucky, you live in the Pacific Palisades." Well, on Tuesday, the luck ran out.